Hi there. We are going to be talking about the 18th century and earlier. And starting with the 18th century, probably the two people we need to know about are Nicolas Appert, and there's another video on YouTube that I've posted there that's much more entertaining than I am. Essentially, he's the father of canned foods, so you'll check that video out as well. I'll talk about Antoine Parmentier. You should take a look at recipes that are using his name. So anything Parmentier, you'll discover uses potatoes. And he was the person in France who championed the use of potatoes. He was the chief chemist in the French army. He was captured, I think, up to 5 times by the Prussians. And in the prisoner of war camp, they were fed only potatoes. And at that time, potatoes were thought to be food fit only for pigs or for prisoners. They believed it caused leprosy. Some clerics believed that it caused lust. Gourmets believed that it was just bland and largely inedible. But for whatever reason, he decided he would champion the potato after having to subsist on it in the prisoner of war camps. Um, Once he was released and started promoting the potato, he had some unusual strategies to make people want it. One of which was he planted them in a garden in the Tuileries, which was kind of a royal part of the royal household, and he had armed guards guarding the potato plants that he would dismiss at night and kind of let the poor people come in and quote unquote steal the potatoes. Um, and so they became kind of covetable. The other thing he did was he convinced Marie Antoinette to wear a potato flour corsage kind of thing. And she also had a dinner where Benjamin Franklin was not president, present actually. And every course had some type of potato in it. So he was able to promote the potato as a viable alternative for mostly poorer people to eat. He was another of our uh, he's not a chef really, but another of our influential food people with a social conscience. He was very concerned with the treatment of the poor and that the poor or the underclasses of the French society get enough to eat. So he opened soup kitchens in Paris. He was recognized for this social conscience, and these days is mostly known for any recipe in French with the word parmentier in there. You will know it will contain the potato. Myself, I love a good potato, so thank you, Antoine Parmentier. Moving back into the 17th century, we're going to encounter a couple of characters, the first of which is Françoise Pierre de la Varenne, generally known as La Varenne. And he was important because he really brought cooking kind of out of the medieval era. Back in the medieval times, spices that we now think of as being more for sweet dishes were used routinely in savory cooking, sugar notably among them. So there was not much distinction between the sweet and savory courses. He really kind of moved that forward. He kind of pioneered the use of roux to thicken sauces. Cooking became a little bit more refined. He started using more vegetables and making them a little bit more the focus of the meal rather than just straight up meat for the aristocrats. Um, was the first to use some of the newer products like turkey at that time was, a novel food for Europe. So, he used new things, new techniques, moved food forward, and also wrote a few books, the most notable of which is Le Cuisine Françoise, so the French cook. And we do have the book in the library here at the college. It is in English. You should definitely check it out. It's really fascinating to see what food from these bygone eras was like and the advice that Varenne or La Varenne has for cooks. The name La Varenne, if you do some research, you'll see is used by a number of cooking schools still in existence today. So he's the first. And then the second will be a gentleman named Guillaume Tirel. Another of our 17th century characters is Francoise Vatel. Yes, another Francois. That's kind of like naming somebody Frenchy, isn't it? Anyway, Vatel was the major domo for a man named Nicolas Fouquet, who was like a superintendent, sort of like a deputy for the king, for Louis XIV. And he wasn't doing such a great job. That is, Nicolas Fouquet was not doing such a good job. Vatel seemed to be doing a fine job. And he was trying to get favor with the king. So he planned this grand banquet to invite the king out, and that was going to kind of restore prosperity to his area. This banquet was for 2,000 people, and this was in, I believe, April of 1671. So think about producing food for 2,000 people now. And then try to imagine producing food for 2,000 people in the late 1600s. I can't really fathom that. At any rate, the legend goes, according to a letter found by Madame, one of Louis's mistresses, that Vatel committed suicide, killed himself by sticking his sword onto the wall and running himself into the sword, thereby impaling himself because the fish delivery was not arriving. Tragically, the fish delivery evidently arrived not very long after he killed himself. The movie that I've posted the trailer for, I haven't seen, but I do believe that it has more of kind of a social message claiming that Vatel killed himself when he realized that he was basically just seen as property. But he's often held up as the example of somebody who was willing to go to any lengths to make sure that his guests were pleased. I'm not willing to go to those lengths. I do like to take care of people, but I'm going to take care of myself first.